the meeting. Okay,
Yes.
so welcome and call to order, which means I started the Zoom. So do we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
Yes, that would be me.
Okay, Gwen, you have 2 minutes.
I'm Gwen Henry, Sustainability Committee Chair. There was an item as a recycling letter that was tabled by the board this last meeting, and President Christian Guzman believes that there is a possibility that it can still go through the process and be accepted by the port should it be approved by this body. So the letter is back out there. I now have 2 board members on my committee, so it will be submitted. It's on my agenda for this Thursday at 6 p.m. I hope to see some of you there. I have just forwarded a PDF file. Jason, there was some thoughts of creating a Word document that people could gain access to. I would like to speak to you about that, as Planning and Land Use has created that workflow, and it seems to be working. So I hope now that all of you have received it, that you can take a look at it and provide your valued feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Next.
It looks like Pat Nave is on the call, and there's some hands up.
Okay, no, I see him. I'm gonna promote them all. Just wait a second. I'll talk more. Promote to panelist. More. Promote to panelist. Allow to talk. Hello, James. Do you raised your hand? Do you have anything to say?
Oh, yeah, I got a lot to say.
You have 2
Hi.
minutes.
That's Pat. James.
Yeah, good. 2 minutes, huh? All right.
It's James. I
sorry?
recognize James, not you.
I
Pat.
just wanted to be let into the meeting at this point.
Okay, you're here.
All right.
Yeah, I've asked 3 or 4 times to get the agenda and notice of the meeting, and I never did. I've asked you and I've asked Christian Guzman
Pat,
for them. Excuse me, you don't argue with somebody when they're making public comments. You listen. Number 1. Number 2,
you weren't recognized.
you just recognized me. I had my hand up.
Now I recognize you to speak. You had your hand up. I mean, I know you want to make this all difficult. So go ahead, Pat, speak.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I asked to get notice of the meetings at least 3 times and never did. And I guess that's reason that, for whatever reason. And then this is the 3rd meeting really, where we've had a number of issues having to do with the Brown Act. I mean, you asked for meetings or asked for suggestions to be on the agenda, you or Christian, and I submitted some and didn't put them on. Instead, I got an email from saying, I think it's important to hear from the whole committee and not overload with one individual's concerns. So I guess maybe other people submitted things, but they're not on the agenda either. So I'm not sure what it is that it takes to get an item on the agenda. We have a number of things that are key, including one that Gwen mentioned, and the time is running on these things. So I guess I want to know, just going to let the clock run until the time expires to consider these environmental matters?
Are you done? Does anybody else want to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, we'll go on. I have a brief, I made some notes on the president's meeting. I also put some notes on some, pardon me, some information up on the as subsidiary stuff on the that I was able to get on the presentation there on the PAPE, and also a presentation that was at on the clean air thing that came from Coastal San Pedro, plus a copy of these notes that I made on the port president's meeting. So there's an introduction. There was a report from Alan Johnson on that they expect to be fully leased on the West Harbor project by the end of the year. They're only around 65% leased now. The signed leases are on 100,000 square feet. The lessees are Mike Hess Brewing, Hopscotch Gallery Lounge, Yamashiro, Poppy and Rose, Sugar Factory, Jaybirds, Harbor Breeze Cruises, Lamy Maritime Institute, the Nederlander project, which is an environmental review with they're looking at the CICWA and EIR. The people that are doing the Yamashiro and the Sugar Factory are supposed to be involved with building the new hotel on 6th and Pacific. There was a question from Elise Swanson. She asked about event production space. That was for things like weddings and stuff. The answer was nothing yet, but you know, they've got about 275,000 square feet more to build out. Gail Fleury asked about cost per square foot. There was no real answer on it. And asked about an updated plan, traffic plan, and he really said, oh, we did what we needed to do. Okay, we had our first cruise since March. Now we're having more cruises. Princess Cruises is planning on doing about 45 more cruises for this year. Norwegian 12.
Nice.
These are 4,000 capacity ships. Projected 200 ship calls in 2022. Royal Caribbean 100, Princess 75, Norwegian 25. The town square is complete. Our strip park, I put it as Harbor Strip Park, but is not in the PAPE. But I did speak to Augie, and he says they have it scheduled to go out for bid in May of 2022 to start in November 2022. I'm trying to figure out what we need to do to press on getting that started. There was more, but in the time of brevity, and there was a lot happened since then for me, and I haven't been able to complete the notes, transcribing them. So that'll be pretty much it.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
When you just say Harbor Strip Park, what are you referring to?
We're talking about the park that goes from Harbor Boulevard to Gaffey. It's the last portion of it, the one that we want to name after John Greenwood.
Okay, so it's not the open area that's between the town square and then the beginnings.
No, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Greg,
Yes.
question for you. Originally with the waterfront development, the community was promised that the local restaurateurs were going to be invited to participate down there. And it seems like there has been a a complete shift in the whole direction. The only local entity that is now being included in the waterfront development is Lammy. You know, it's my understanding that the Ports of Call, the former Ports of Call group, restaurant group, has been summarily dismissed from the project, and nobody else in San Pedro, and none, you know, this is supposed to be an opportunity site, and nobody in San Pedro is signed up for this. And in fact, we've kicked out basically the biggest restaurant down there, which is the fish market.
I think it
James,
was
I've
moved.
noted the same thing. It wasn't brought up in that meeting, but I will bring, this is not, you know, I have my feelings, and I don't think there was ever any intention, but maybe I'm wrong. But you know, I listened a lot to what was happening, and I'm still waiting. My information is that even though they're 65% leased, they have to be 80% leased before the banks will fund them. So I'm
And-
really,
And have they actually signed the ground lease for the property yet?
I think so.
I believe so.
You
I
believe
don't
so?
think so. I don't think.
That's the stuff that I was seeing, but I don't
That is
know.
the key to the whole thing, is to whether or not it's gonna go ahead, is whether or not they've actually signed on to the lease, and that then starts the clock ticking on, you know,
Yeah,
them
no, I mean,
doing
it's a question we need to ask,
Yes,
We need to ask.
you know, sign ground lease. Thanks for bringing that up, but I was the same thing. I mean, no, there was no mention of Ports of Call restaurant, so,
or anybody else, except in the San
Yeah.
Pedro magazine that Jay Trainees has taken another location.
yeah, well, he's taken, yeah, but that's the old Canetti's place. And then all of a sudden, even though they have all that space there, like 275,000 square feet to fill, they want to push
The fish market,
the fish market down to the Catalina terminal.
which is going to create a huge traffic issue when you add in coming back of the cruise ships, and you add into the mix the Nederlander amphitheater. Can you imagine what's going to happen, you know, on any given date when there's a concurrent arrival of cruise ships?
There's other people whose hands raised. Can we move on,
Point of order,
Diana?
those are not on the
Yeah,
agenda. We can't talk about them.
Yeah,
I'm just
thank
asking
you.
questions about this particular
Thank
agenda.
you, Craig.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, great, thank you. I had a question. I assumed you were talking, I came in a few minutes late, so you may have already covered this. I assumed you were talking about the president's meeting. And my
Yes.
question is, either there or at the board meeting that I missed, did they talk about the timeline on the PAIP motion and when the actual action was going to come back to the Board of Harbor Commissioners?
I don't remember them talking about it. I did post the graphic they gave us on it, and in our agenda item, so you can look through it and see if you can see it, but I don't remember that coming up. They are dated when they're going to do the projects.
Yeah, but it has to go back to the board. The board hasn't approved it yet. It was presented at the Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting
Yeah, but
as
I
an
had,
information item, and now it has to go back for approval. And I was asking whether or not they told you when that would be. So,
no,
well,
I mean, hey, I haven't heard, and I'll
thank you.
try and attend the board meetings to see.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Next, consideration of when we should have our regular meetings. So today's not Monday this week. Today is Coastal's meeting. Tomorrow, I guess, is Central's meeting.
Yes.
And so we need to have a date what we can all attend and it would be easy for us.
The Central's port meeting is usually the first Monday of the month.
Yes, James.
Wasn't
We're not
all-
speaking about Central. This is about
I understand.
this is about Northwest, and I'm asking other people where they think their dates would be. Where do they think in the calendar we should do this?
Craig, can you
Hands
see the
up.
hands raised? Craig, can you see the icons for hand raised?
Yes, I can. I'm just moving to the calendar. So, okay, we'll start. Pat,
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've looked at the calendar to see what open dates there are.
yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to look at everything at once. So I'm looking for other people to give suggestions so we can start looking at dates.
Well, I had a point of inquiry. Isn't there a joint port committee currently?
No,
Yes,
Yeah,
James Preston would know.
no,
No, there is no joint.
There is, but the invitation could be made.
There isn't.
there's not one currently.
Okay.
Thought there was.
So, okay. Who's next? Cynthia?
I had a question, Diana, when are we going to keep the same meetings for the bylaws committee? Same time, or are we moving that around? Because I was thinking of doing it like the first Wednesday for our port meeting, but I don't want to interfere with your meeting.
The first Wednesday is oftentimes the Budget and Finance Committee, I believe. The bylaws committee meets depending on need. It's not a regular meeting date. So there is no regularly scheduled meeting date for that because it depends on what the need is. So in this case, we're meeting on a date that's determined by when the applications were due for the vacant seat. And that's what drove the meeting date. So
Maybe the second Wednesday then of the month would be good.
the second Wednesday is the planning committee.
How about the?
Is someone looking at the calendar for
I'm
Northwest?
trying to look at both. It's hard to
Hard to look at
switch
both.
back. I'm trying to look at a regular calendar and.
That's what
look
I
at
was
our
looking
calendar.
at, was the regular calendar.
And I was thinking, what if we try for the first Thursday? But that'll mean, because Monday, looks like the first Monday is executive committee meeting. Then it's,
Yep.
and then Wednesday, or we could go for the Tuesday. Well, we can't go for, I'm trying. It's hard because I don't know when we want to keep away from when they're having their board meetings.
Right.
So,
Craig, I'm concerned about Tom Norman's availability. He's probably by far the busiest of us all, and he is on the committee, by the way.
Yeah, I did verify that. I found it was the previous meeting was on the consent agenda. So I've actually been elected to the youth committee twice, which is what I thought, but that's nice. But I was elected to the port committee at the same time.
Means you get 2 votes.
So,
okay, no, I wasn't, I mean, it's not a problem. I mean, where are you standing? I mean, we need to take everybody's,
yeah, for
schedule
evenings,
into
I've been waiting and I have my calendars open to see what days work for folks. My evenings are often freer. I'm very busy 8 to 5, 8 to 5:30 with my role, but I'm often not as busy in the evening. So Tuesdays looking generally good. Thursday is looking good, except for Thursday, the 4th. I'm committed until 6:30 PM. So, but you know, I'll block my calendar off what we decide here, so it won't be as much of an issue. So your first Thursday, first Tuesday, those look good for me, but I'll, you know, I want to hear what others think too, and I'll chime in if it's a no-go for me.
Did you say first Thursday is bad for you? I'm sorry, Tom, did you say first Thursday is bad for you?
It depends on the time. Only this first Thursday, I've already committed to a listening session that ends at 6:30. It's virtual. So if we started at this time, I could do this. I could do first Thursday.
Could you do second Thursday? I'm thinking first Thursday is kind of a big event day in San Pedro.
Yeah, it is.
So, but
second
Thursdays,
Thursday.
Diana, I think Thursdays are good for,
I'm looking at your calendar and I think the second Thursday doesn't look to me like that it has any ongoing.
Well, this Thursday is Veterans Day, in November.
Oh, and Thursday's also Thanksgiving too in 1 month.
But not on the second,
Thursday is, it's,
not the second Thursday.
that's
What?
that's the
Oh, not
25th.
second Thursday. Well, is everybody available on the second Thursday? I
Except for
Veterans
November.
Day, I'm a veteran and I'm really don't think it's rude to do it on Veterans Day.
You could set a regular meeting date of the second Thursday and just change it for the month of November. That's another possibility, you know.
Yeah, why don't we shoot and I'll run it by Christian. We set up for the second Thursday and
I've had my hand
but for
raised.
November, we do it for the first Thursday.
I've had my hand raised, so I just want to say that I'm not available on Thursdays from April through September. So I can do Thursdays for now, but from the late spring to early fall, I can't do Thursdays.
Well, I've solved all the problems of the world by then, Jason, so.
You're so optimistic.
What about Tuesdays? The first Tuesday.
I think that conflicts with several of the other
Does it?
NCs that sometimes we like to attend them.
Not the first Tuesday. First Tuesday doesn't conflict. It did for November because we're having our budget and finance meeting, but normally it wouldn't conflict.
That would,
And our budget and finance committee, it should be over by 6:30. So if you met at 6:30 that night, you should be fine.
May I ask a question? When did the port committee used to meet?
That's too many years ago, Dan.
Yeah,
No, it isn't. We met
It was
last,
a
it was
first,
the last week, and we usually met on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I can't remember. It was our last week. I think Tuesday's our last week, maybe even a Wednesday.
all right. Well, I'm not trying to,
So a lot of
Cross anything
them
up.
don't have anything in the last week.
I'll take a look at
What-
an old agenda.
whatever was just suggested earlier was that the first Tuesday? Did I hear?
Second
Yeah.
Tuesday.
I thought, no, we said first Tuesday.
So to avoid the first Tuesday, first Tuesday. Yeah, first Tuesday was
Yeah.
fine,
I'm
Well,
looking at an older agenda.
other than November.
when does the executive committee meet?
And then
The first Monday.
Monday.
Executive committee is the first Monday.
Yeah, stack those meetings up.
Is there anybody on this committee also on bylaws and elections? Because I see that scheduled.
Two. 3 people are.
Oh,
That-
Okay, well then that's not a good day for
Well,
those.
it's not, Tom, it's really not a problem. That is not we don't have a regular meeting. It's not a standing committee. And that particular night, we're meeting from 5:30 to 6:30. So as long as the port committee meets at 6:30 that night, I don't think there's a conflict.
Okay.
We'll just make sure our meeting's done by then.
The port committee generally, in the old days, was the last Tuesday.
I thought so. That's what I thought. The fourth
Okay.
Tuesday or the
Well,
last.
What you're talking about now seems fine, as far as I'm concerned.
What I remember about the port committee, because I served on it for a long, long time, is that it was a real scramble to get motions and comments put together in time for the board meeting, the following board meeting.
So that would indicate later in the month would be good.
No,
That
we
would be
didn't-
better than the
earlier-
first Tuesday.
earlier in the month would be better, Dan, because it gives you a little more time to get the comments together. But comments on environmental matters are usually
Oh.
hard to put together.
You're speaking of getting information for the following month's board meeting.
Well, I'm thinking of, it's a composition matter, Dan. It has to do with getting it, brushed up and everything, and then,
Anyways, I mean, we're getting in the weeds. I think at first Tuesday, we look to be okay.
yeah.
I'll talk to Christian, see if we can do that. And we,
Okay.
at least for this Tuesday, we're fine. That works with you, Jason?
First Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, we have options to change it, but this looks to be something that would be workable, and we can all go back and go through it.
And make
Well,
that,
if the very last week was too soon for a board meeting, then having it the first Tuesday is even closer. So that would be worse.
yeah.
It would be after the executive board meeting, so
It's
it
very
would,
close
we
to
would
the
be
board meeting.
thinking of things for the next
So the following month.
All right.
yeah.
How about the third Tuesdays? I mean, would that work?
The third Tuesday looks to be available.
The
Looks
third
to
Tuesday-
be.
Look, Cynthia raises a really good point, because environmental comments almost all have a time-sensitive deadline on them. And to have
Good
a
job,
meeting-
Cynthia.
who, what, where, who's talking here?
Pat,
Yeah.
somebody, I mean, you said what you said. dude. Okay, so we got first Tuesday and we got third Tuesday.
I'll make a motion on third Tuesday, subject to change, talking to Christian.
Well, we're not,
Second the motion.
I'm sorry?
He said he
Dan seconded
seconded.
You made a
I mean,
motion,
we're
I'm
just, I was
seconding.
hoping to go through and see if everybody's okay with this. I
And
mean, it's not like,
It's not a done deal. We still have to make sure Christian wants it too.
may I make
yeah.
a suggestion?
So I mean, if we go first and or third Tuesday, would that work?
Yes, for me,
Third
both
Tuesday.
seem fine.
Third Tuesday works.
So for Thomas,
Either work for me.
Okay,
What time are you for the hours?
we usually 6:30. So I would say 6:30. A little bit later, if I get caught downtown, I can usually get back by 6:30.
in my decision's kind of based on 6:30. That makes it easier and allows those with the other 5:30 meetings to attend. So I would like us to agree on the 6:30 time.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't want you to be in a meeting while you're driving.
May I make a suggestion? In regards to the time sensitivity, yes, for example, this letter that I had discussed in public comment, when you get 30 days, it's very difficult to get it coordinated. And even when there was a 30-day extension for that, because you don't know until after that's a possibility, and that's clocked in, and
but
they.
Gwen, any day that you put in there is gonna, if we do it third or we do it first,
I'm not done.
we're all gonna have a problem.
I'm not done with my thought. I was coming up with
You
a
never
solution.
are.
I was coming up with a solution. So sustainability, being on the third Thursday, may I suggest that if, for example, it's discussed at sustainability, that we can collaborate in some ways on environmental concerns in a way to take it through one committee or another, so that it has a bit of flexibility, and that allows an opportunity for an additional discussion and then approval at another.
Okay,
committee.
I will take that concern to Christian, and then we'll figure it out, and we may have to work a little bit back and forth, because I want to go back and check all the other schedules, but we know the first and third Tuesdays will work. I don't think that it makes a difference if it's first or third, because working times on these things are variable, and sometimes you have more time, sometimes you have less time. Remember,
Right.
we're an advisory board. We're not a, nothing, so let's see what we can what I can work out with Christian. Because I need to work a time for him because he's got a lot of requirements and he's the co-chair.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
gonna-
today we're not going to decide anything. We're just
I'm
going to,
gonna renew my motion, Craig. It's timely and is appropriate to do it. I'm gonna say third Tuesday at 6:30 for a lot of timing reasons that are important.
I said I need to be able to talk
Wait a
to
minute.
Christian. He's the co-chair. If he can't
Yeah.
make those one or the other, then we're gonna have a problem.
That's not how a
Okay.
committee works. You don't get in a room with your co-chair and make the decisions for the committee. So, if it
no, but
dies-
he hasn't found out from Christian what he wants too. Christian has to give us his best dates too.
Sure, he can come to the committee meetings and make his few points known. Not a
So we
problem.
could do that next week.
Pat,
maybe.
you're not the chair of the committee either. So, I mean,
motion-
you want
motion's on the-
you
If
want
the
to make,
motion
you
is on
want
the
to,
floor. If it
okay, the
dies for
motion's
lack-
on the floor.
Does it
Do we
die
have,
for lack
who
of a sec-
seconded?
Nobody seconds it. It dies for lack of a second.
I'll second it.
Who?
Thomas seconds it.
Okay, Thomas seconded. All in favor? Let's go through it. Pat,
I want to make sure you understand, this is. not a-
Pat, it's vote. Pat, I. Thomas,
Aye.
I. Craig, nay. Cynthia,
I don't care. I'm okay with both.
are
So
you
I guess I abstain.
abstain? Cynthia abstain. Jason,
Abstain.
abstain. Jason, okay. Dan,
I, hello?
We hear you.
Oh. Glad I didn't say anything bad.
Yeah, me too.
well, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I said aye.
Your aye, so we're first Tuesday,
Third
Oh, I-
Tuesday.
third Tuesday, pardon me.
Third, yeah,
Craig, can I make
It-
clear that this is not something firm? It's what you take to Christian. He certainly should have some input. But
yeah,
want him to have something that you guys can consider.
yeah.
And we didn't
Well,
have.
then why did
discussion-
we vote on it? Why would you? I don't understand. It's
Greg,
okay.
it's
Pat.
done
I
and
leave
take it to Christian. The
Okay.
committee is willing to revisit things when they happen.
Yeah, if he comes up with something, even though, he's not at the meeting, maybe.
Well, now we're committed to first Tuesday, so third,
Third
first,
Tuesday.
third Tuesday. And that's what we decided. So now I'm gonna talk to him and then the next third Tuesday, which is, let's see.
November 16th.
Was that the,
Yeah, November 16th, we will schedule a meeting and we'll go from there.
that's-
Okay. Okay, next item. Discussion of tracking and following report issues by the committee. This is not an action item, this is a discussion. So would anybody like to lead off? David, you have a lot of information about what's going on with the port. Would you like to start off? Since I invited you.
Sure. For those that, because I know the first meeting I missed and I've been late, I work nights, so I just made arrangements to be here. But thank you, Craig, for having me on here. I am a longshoreman. I am on the executive board for the last couple of years. And I know that tracking, we had mentioned, Craig, when we were talking, is
Mhm.
part of why some things are backed up. May not be immediately of what's happening now, but it is something that's coming down the wire of companies wanting to track their merchandise, their containers. So I think it's going to hit a little later. What Craig, just for the others, for Craig and I, what we talked about was just the bottleneck of what's happening. I know some of the narrative is it's labor, and but it's a whole sliver of things. Like I said with Craig, whole sliver, a lot of slivers of what's happening in the ports and the bottleneck. Started with the pandemic. When it first started, China not producing because they were closed down. Then when they started to produce, a lot of people started ordering online. My wife has things come every day, and it's easy to click, a couple of clicks. And so that merchandise comes from China. We have a large percentage of our merchandise coming from China in containers. And so that started, it was an overwhelming surge of containers. And people are at home, their kids are at home, they can't go out. So online ordering was a big thing. It still is. People are doing things to their home. So just a lot of merchandise from overseas. Training and bodies for labor. A lot of people are not aware that the union does not hire our own. PMA, which is the shipping lines and who they use, who we negotiate with, PMA hires. They're the ones that say yay or nay. It's joint, but if they say no, we can't hire. So shortage of labor, a lot of people blame our union. It's a joint venture. If they say no, we can't hire. So it's been many years that we should have hired more. We haven't. And again, not us, PMA, since we're joint. Also training of skilled labor, not having top handlers, top handlers are the ones that stack up the containers, the crane operators, excuse me, crane operators. We don't train. Our union doesn't train our own. Again, it's PMA, it's a joint venture. If they say no, which they usually do, they don't like to spend money. They'd rather keep that money. So that's also created a shortage of skilled labor. But again, it's not of the ILWU's doing. It's them saying no, they don't want to spend. So it's a perfect storm. That is a sliver of it. And again, the ordering, the shortage of chassis, that's come up a lot in our meetings where the ILW should fix the chassis. They took that away from us. So now where are all the chassis? There's a shortage. If the outside truckers come in with a container, an empty, and they're there for a load, a lot of times they're turned around. Again, there's a whole lot of things, so I get a little mixed up, but shortage of chassis, that's one. Also the Clean Air Act, the trucks that are supposed to come in, if they're older than 3 years, sometimes they're turned away or they're fined. They come in with the truck, they're not allowed to enter because of that. So there's a lot of issues of why there's no room on the docks. A lot of companies are using that instead of warehouses. There are not a lot of warehouses, even though people say, oh, they take them to the warehouse. They don't take them to the warehouse. There's not a warehouse. The docks, the ports are the warehouse. So they'd rather have them there and charge companies money to store them there. And when they need them, they'll bring them instead of take them to a warehouse and sit at the warehouse, which again, a piece of land where a container will sit. A lot of places don't have warehouses. So we're over capacity on the docks. The few warehouses that are out there, they're overloaded. So it's just it's a whole lot of things of why we're backed up. So again, that's just some of the things that Craig and I talked about. So I'll kind of leave it at that, Craig.
Thank you, David.
Yes.
So let me start with Thomas. Do you have your hand up?
Yes, yeah. No, in terms of tracking, I guess maybe I misunderstood, and I had a question before too. There, being new to this committee and maybe the committee being, newly reconstituted, I'm just curious to learn and be informed by others on ways to get a handle on the issues that are gonna be relevant to the, to the neighborhood. And I now know we have Google Drive that we share our agenda and some of the materials. So that was the spirit in which I was raising my hand, just to kind of get a conversation started there, saying this is a discussion. So any feedback anybody has, I know I'll be absorbing eagerly. But thank you, to the previous speaker too, about the situation that comes up a lot in a business school, and that's kind of the way supply chains work, right? So it's nice to know everybody's working to get things better.
Pat?
Yeah, this item was put on the agenda for last meeting. We discussed it. Unfortunately, Craig, Dan, and Cynthia weren't here, but the item really has to do with tracking the environmental documents that are out there for comment, so that we could assign them and respond in a timely fashion. It was the first step in a four-step method of having an orderly way of addressing the matters that come before us. So Tom is right. That's what it's about. And what I proposed last time, and Craig and Christian seemed to agree with, seemed to me appropriate for Craig, you as co-chair, to notify the port that you wanted to be the point person for notices that they send out of comment periods that were open for initial statements or for responses to MNDs or EIRs or focused EIRs. That's all it was about.
No, it wasn't, but it was about tracking all sorts of issues, not just that specific
Well, if it
issue.
is, then it's
And one of the majors, may I?
The Brown Act.
May I?
Well, you want to conform with the Brown Act or not?
It
Tell
said,
me.
you seem to make the Brown Act whatever suits your purposes.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've noticed that.
Interesting.
And interesting. I think your opinions are interesting also. I mean, you can do what you want, Pat.
As chair,
Okay.
Chairman, I suggest.
Can I continue?
I-
I mean, one of the reasons why I brought David, may I? One of the reasons that I brought David Sampiero here was we're not discussing the elephant in the room, which is what's happening at the port right now. We want to track a lot of stuff that's down the road or could be this. And the real big problem right now is that there's 180 ships in the harbor polluting. Okay, the real problem is, and nobody's got a real solution to it. I mean, I could see from my window, that's what I see, what you're seeing behind me. That's what I see from my window. And I know as somebody as a production person that this is only cascading and getting worse and worse. And
Better.
with it, when you look at this at this level and we're not addressing it and we're not saying, hey, this is a concern to us. It's not just a concern to us. I just went downtown and talked to my customers, and it's a concern to them, and everybody's pointing fingers. And this is one area where we can track what's going on, we can follow what's going on, and maybe get some input and see if we can do stuff. It wasn't just, following one thing.
Craig, I've got a
Yes.
suggestion.
Some of us have had our.
Go ahead,
Uh,
James.
You recognize me? Thank you.
Yes.
It would, in this day and age of being able to share documents, it would be apropos for the three San Pedro neighborhood council port committees to actually share an Excel spreadsheet along the lines of what Pat Nave is talking about. That way, we're not dependent upon any one particular committee to, always, be on alert for things, but we could actually share the information on a shared document in which we could see what's coming up, and then cross communicate on individual items or common concerns as the deadlines come up. It would also be a way for each port committee to actually share what they're doing in terms of motions related to the common concerns. As to the current issue with the congestion at the port, if you start reading the trade journals for the supply chain industry, what you find is that the supply chain logjam is not local to just our port. It's a nationwide phenomena, and it spreads all the way up to Chicago rail yards, where containers are being, basically stored on the trains because they don't have any storage yards because they're backed up there. And so this obviously is going to need a national approach, and just our port saying, oh, we're going to go to 24/7. Frankly,
Okay, James, I need
they're
to,
not going to do that. And
we've got
not-
other people we got to hear from. Dan?
Thank you. We're, it seems to me pretty clear we're speaking on two tracks, as it were. The David's excellent information about what's going on in the port is vital to everyone living here, everyone in the country for that matter. It's a huge global problem, and I think it's important for our group and groups like ours to track what's going on with the supply chain and the port. But I believe what Pat is referencing is tracking items that we are going to be following as a port committee. And forgive my naivete, but I think Diana and others had an excellent spreadsheet system for following items of interest and projects that we're working on. And if that's the case, then in simply a mechanical sense, if we need a way to track the many items that we will be talking about, both environmental, physical, and emotional here in San Pedro, we need that kind of spreadsheet system, I assume. Am I on the right track, Diana?
That's certainly what I would suggest. And I think that James was on the right track also when he suggested you use a shared drive that could be shared by all three neighborhood councils, port committees, and could be shared by your members as well.
That seems to me a reasonable thing to do.
That's not really a problem.
Well,
No, but there's only certain people that should be probably adjusting it.
Well,
That it gets
that may well,
confusing.
yeah, that may well be true. Have a keeper of the charts, so to speak. That's an excellent thought. And that person or two or three people take in the information and edit the charts, and we can look at a glance and see where we are. It's that simple and that complicated, I think. And I believe something like that satisfies what's on the agenda tonight with respect to tracking. But David's what David talked about vis-a-vis what's going on in the real world is it needs to be known by everyone and followed by everyone. It goes well beyond whether Christmas toys are going to be late this year. And it is a worldwide phenomenon, not just nationwide. And so we have two different things here, but I think if we can agree to set up a physical tracking spreadsheet to follow issues, that would be a good idea. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Are everybody's hands up because they want to speak, or they're just,
I'm
or some,
winning. I'm winning.
Yes,
okay. So where are we at?
Gwen's
Okay,
muted.
Gwen,
Phil Nicolay actually had quite an extensive spreadsheet, and it was kind of like a history as well. Remember that the Clean Air Action Plan, for example, this is what the tomorrow's meeting is going to be what the 17th meeting for the Clean Air Action Plan, talking about trucking. He had a lot of good details in there, and it was all listed on there, and it had its own page. Port improvements also had its own. Harbor, the harbor funding thing. Sorry, I've forgotten the name.
The IAP.
It had its own. So it also was a good history as well. In regards to big national and local struggles, such as what's happening with the ships that are out there. You know, after a good idea of you know, perhaps as a think tank, finding out what is on the federal level, what is happening nationally, state, some things that we can do here locally right now, and what I've really wanted to do is write a letter to the South Coast AQMD, find out the additional
Gwen, can we move on?
particulate
Okay, I understand you're getting into specifics when we're talking about tracking.
It would be in the
Uh,
spreadsheet. I would.
Okay, Diana, can Diana?
yeah, two things. In terms of the tracking sheet, I think one of the things you need to start talking about is what are the things that you want to track, and I would suggest you start with the sequence that you know that are coming up, because there are at least 4 of them that are coming up, and you probably want to start your tracking with those, because those are very important. The other thing, back to the supply chain issue, is, as you've said, it's very important. It's a national and international issue. It's very complicated, but you may want to suggest to the board that they have somebody come from the port to talk about it, because of how complicated it is. And I think it would be good for board members and the community to have the information about what's going on.
Bravo.
Thank you. When I missed last meeting, I had to go to a funeral of my aunt in Norfolk. And the same situation that we're having here, they were having there. They're not,
Right.
they're more of a, how do you put it? They're more of a military port. But I was watching the trains go filled up with containers, and then they were telling me, and then when I got back home, there was a picture in the New York Times of how the containers are all stacked up in the port of Savannah. So it's really a lot of the stuff we're handling, we're talking about, has to do, is really getting really impacted by what's happening in the port right now. So it's not just, I mean, Diana's right. We got to track sequence. We have to track, you know, other issues that are going on with the port. But the thing is I keep seeing, every time I look out my window, my office is what you're looking at back there, is all those containers, and it gets worse. And this backlog and the lack of control, and yeah, it has to happen on a federal level, but we have to be saying something about it, I think. I think we're agreed on that we need to track these things and we need to do a spreadsheet. I can, and as Pat suggested, I need to go to the port and get them to give me those issues that they're currently doing it on. This putting together a spreadsheet, I don't think is a big problem. And putting it on a drive where everybody can reach it. I think we can set up, that's not a big problem. I think I can reach out to some of the members like Jace like Jason and Diana, if I hit any snags with this. Okay, Thomas?
Yep. So on tracking, now we've established this, my recommendations, I definitely embrace. We have this Google Drive with the agenda and supplementary material, so we should be able to have a folder for such a Google spreadsheet. And, my recommendation coming from another port, the port of Duluth, which had mostly grain and iron ore, is, and even like it, thematically, the port, I'm an economist by training, so the port is so important to this community. So yes, we should be looking at the economic impact, right? It affects us that way. There's an environmental component, there's a tourism component, in this. So starting by tracking and seeing all the work that needs to be done so we can see where the interaction is. We don't have the ability to fix the port's problem or the world's problem, because some of this was caused in China when they shut down their port for COVID, right? It caused a delay there, but there are things that we can look at, maybe even safety is a fourth category. So definitely recommend we start tracking, we look at that. And I suspect there's a bit of a backlog, and maybe it's because I'm new, but there's just a lot of different areas, for us to look at. And I think we'll need a bit of time to get through these, so we don't let some of the urgent things not have our expertise and ability to interact with the public to inform the port. So, I look forward, Chair, of getting through this and, being patient, because it'll take a while, but, definitely hope we can methodically get at this every third or first Tuesday, whenever. Maybe we need to meet a first and a third Tuesday, this year to kind of get to the backlog of things pending this committee.
Okay. Gwen, I see your hands up again.
Yes, I wanted to finish my thought. Well, with David, with the ILWU, there are concerns that come from the workers that we can voice on. Once again, the actual pollution impacts of the ships sitting out there. There are those local things that we can address, and those are very specific to us that we can target the agencies and do those inquiries. And yes, Diana, I think that we really do need a great scope and understanding of the entire scope of everything, because the China backlog. I mean, really, there are 2-year schedules of shipping that are done way in advance, and that has all been thrown out the window. And that's part of the concerns, and that's just a small component. So we do need the education in understanding the logistics and the supply chain to really understand the scope of what we can address here locally.
Diana,
Yes?
your hands up?
No, I'm sorry. Laura.
Okay.
Got it.
I have reached out, and I've reached out to James, but I haven't heard from him, but until just now. So, and I've reached out to Coastal and spoke. I'm friends with Kathleen there, and she runs the committee with Shannon, who I'm also friends with, to get their to try and put together something like what we were talking about in a central committee. So I will continue. And then James, if after this meeting is over with, if we can meet at a later
just
date, we can
emailed you.
set up, and I can set a meeting up. And we need to talk to Wilmington too, because all these issues are theirs also.
I just emailed you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I put my agenda down somewhere. So here we go. So we agreed we're gonna set up a tracking system. We're gonna look at stuff. We're gonna try and get other neighborhood councils involved. We're gonna go into setting up a Google Drive with tracking issues in different formats, in different ways. Try to get somebody from the port to just, I think we need to get people, not just uh, port officials, we need to get people like from the ILWU, the truckers. We need to get the people that are being, everybody's pointing fingers at right now, talking to us and telling us what's going on. I gotta say, I'm a production person. This is, when I see what's happening out on the port, it's just, everything just backs up and it becomes, how do you put it? Things stop moving. And that's what's happening out there. You've got these things stacked up so high, and people are sending their trucks to get their goods and they can't get them because it's in the middle of this pile. And to get them out, you have to pull this other stuff out. And I know from talking to other longshoremen that that they're running out of, the chassis at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So what good does it run 24 hours? These are issues that are impacting everything that we're doing, including the Clean Act. And I'm being told that this won't be cleaned up before 6 months from now, or in maybe June. David, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, just real quick, just a couple of quick points. I do agree with James that, going 24/7 is probably not going to solve the problem because of the chassis, because of outside truckers, maybe not willing to work those hours if they don't get their containers. Warehouses, or at least companies, have to be open at those times too. So it's not just, hey, we're open 24/7. I mean, we're kind of already open 24/7. There's a few hours that we're not. It's called the hoot shift from 3 to 7. But it may not. I think another point that was brought up, tracking. My parents are from Mexico. I was born and raised here. I'm also a first generation longshoreman. So my parents' house, my dad, who's still alive, he's 82. He's on Mesa and O'Farrell, which is literally 3 blocks away from China shipping. So I grew up in this area. So clean air. I mean, we don't want those container ships out there polluting our air. Some things we've talked about before, as far as top handlers and all the things that we can have cleaner machinery for us that we'll be in there doing them instead of automation, but we don't want that. So this past year and a half or so, we've been breaking records month over month of moving containers, and there's a backlog. So there's a lot of issues, like everyone stated, that of getting this cleaned up. We're doing our best. We're not perfect either. I'm one of those guys that say, hey, listen, longshoremen, we can do better. We can all do better. But absolutely, I'm from San Pedro. I mean, that's I have a granddaughter who's 6 months, my first granddaughter. My kids, I have 2 older kids. I have 2, my wife and I are adopting 2 kids, 8 and 5. And so I want clean air too. I want to be able to, so all these things, there's a lot. So the tracking that was mentioned by a few people of all the issues from years ago, I think that's important. The history, I believe that Gwen talked about, the history of all these things, very, very important. So I'm glad that Craig invited me to this, and I'm glad that everybody's here participating. So I just want to say that whatever information I get, gladly share. And I think that's what makes these neighborhood councils great. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Good.
Okay. Pat?
Yeah, just it's great hearing the history of the blockages that are going on with the port and goods movement and that sort of thing. We can have an impact, and the port does have to listen to us when we make comments on EIRs and things. I'm not sure what impact we can have on the port with respect to goods movement. So I'd like to see us emphasize in the tracking systems the items that we do have an obligation to work on. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, any more comments on this?
David.
Just that.
David, you raised your hand again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just the last thing, something that came up in our e-board meeting with Sal DiCostanza, who's also from Pedro, I've known him forever. mention about getting the word out that maybe this Christmas can be a brick and mortar Christmas. We can do local things on the shelf, things that we can do instead of ordering. Right now, not to say that we don't order, but maybe this Christmas, let's empty out the shelves. And what's the best way to do that is do local. San Pedro, Wilmington, Torrance, Long Beach, all these places. Why don't we just, and at our e-board, that's, it's not just ILW. We talk about our community. We talk about what's best. And maybe, hey, we'll slow down the imports from China by getting the word out. Let's do brick and mortar. Let's do local. Let's do the, crafted in San Pedro. There's a lot of great places that we can do local. Spend
We'll
our
have
money
to.
here. It's here. And so I just wanted to bring that up because that was brought up in our last e-board meeting.
We'll have to, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David. Good.
Okay, the next one issue after this is the discussion of, we only have a short period of time. This meeting was going to be about an hour. So the discussion of the Harbor Boulevard improvement, I put on in the agenda items, the graphic that we had that said about it shows the improvements in the park that they want to build on the railroad tracks. And there was possible comments for the CEQA analysis, which Pat was interested in. So let's go. First up, Pat.
I'm going to make a motion to table this because it doesn't comply with the Brown Act. You can't tell from the agenda item what project we're talking about. It could be the park, it could be the connectivity plan, it could be the adjacent improvements on Harbor Boulevard having to do with the hill.
Kind of shipping.
On Pacific, yeah. So if you don't mind, Craig, I think to avoid a problem on this thing.
Pat, I disagree. And
we can just
and
really
in
look-
fact, in the stuff, the whole thing, the whole discussion that was had at the, I believe it was land use and planning, because that's where I got the thing. It was called the harbor improvement. I know you knew what it was, even though you want to complain about it was. And it does have to be brief, etc. You make, like you say, this is very interesting.
Can I ask that, as chair, you keep it at a higher level? Thank you.
What do you mean by that?
I
That
think
was
that
mean.
personal
That was mean.
I think that personal
Okay.
attacks.
Pat, it's I mean, I understand you want to be that, but it's very clear what it says here. And if you look at the information I put in the agenda packet, you can find what this is referring to. So if you have, so I don't see your point.
Well, number one, I didn't get the agenda packet, even though I asked 3 times for the notice. Number two, excuse me, it's really easy. And I asked 3 times, not only this month, but last month, for some clarification about what was intended for this. And it's simply, Craig, a matter of adding 2 or 3 words to it to make clear what it is that you're talking about, so that somebody reading the agenda would say, that is a matter I'm interested in. I wish to attend and speak on it. It's all you have to do. So
Pat, I put the thing in there. Everybody has access to the calendar. You were aware of the agenda before. You've
that's 'cause Brian had
you've
told me
been
about it.
sending emails back and forth. And I put these things in the packet today. I was gathering them up. I only have a certain amount of time, but that's besides the point. It is very clear, and you're saying that it's not clear enough. Just doesn't buy it with me.
it doesn't, well, I'm
I
sorry,
really
it
doesn't.
A motion
And
a motion to table takes precedence. So I think you can avoid a problem simply by tabling it, take it up next time.
Are you sure, Pat? Because I think we can talk about it.
No, first of all, a motion to table just means that you can put it to the end of the meeting. This is the end of the meeting.
No, you put it at the,
Oh,
until it's recalled from the table, Craig.
Check Robert's Rules of Order. I just went over it. Okay,
Is that what you did with Gwen Henry at the last board meeting? Took it up at the end of the meeting?
I'm sorry, question again?
Hey.
What was your question?
Pat, I'm tired of arguing with you about silly stuff.
Ooh,
You,
ooh, silly
you know.
stuff. This is good.
Okay, so you want it your way. You've wanted it your way all the time across. That's fine. We're still at this item. You made a motion, nobody's seconded. So does anybody want to discuss this item?
But we don't have time anymore now, but if we could do it for a few minutes.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments to make? Gwen?
Actually, my comment was about another item for an agenda as a suggestion, but
That'll go, that's next. Okay, anybody want to make observations about this? Or comments?
Can you start it?
I don't, at this point, my personal opinion on these matters is this is really affecting Central, and this is in their backyard, and they should be taking the lead. We've always in the past would let the neighborhood council that was affected take the lead. And I would rather hear on comments about this project from Central Neighborhood Council first before I would comment on it, because I'd want to hear what they were having to say. Pat, your hand's raised. Are you going to talk?
No, it's raised in error there. Go ahead.
I'd like to say something, even if it's not in our backyard though, too, it's going to affect us, right? I mean, as much as them.
I don't think it affects us as much as people that live right across the street from it. But I always like to hear the comments of the people that are living right there. And a lot of times we comment, I feel that we're commenting on stuff without having talking to the people that are in that neighborhood and hearing what they had to say. So before, when we used to do this stuff, it may be helpful that we have a joint committee, but I would like to hear, what Central has to say and go to their port committee meeting and see how they're commenting on this.
Okay, next port meeting, we have to go to a Central then. We should go to it.
And Pat, your hand's still up?
Yeah, Diana came in and pointed out to me that there's a bunch of questions. If you're talking about this particular project, and such as what is the level of environmental review, when are the comments due, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of tracking information that's needed there. I checked on the, I didn't know what it was intended by this agenda item, Craig. I went on the port's website to see what open comment matters that there were. Let me see if I can pull it up here. And there wasn't anything about Harbor Boulevard on the open, on their open.
Go to our agenda, go
So
look
I-
on it. It says Harbor Boulevard. You were asking, you said it wasn't there. I said, I put it in the agenda packet. It says Harbor Boulevard
I
improvement.
think you misunderstood, Craig. He was
I didn't
talking
get the agenda packet, remember?
All you have to do is, like every other board member, go to our calendar and
No,
pick up
you
every
were-
other board member, everybody else, any other member of the community, and see what's listed there. That's a responsibility of everybody who's on the committee.
You're new to your job, Craig. Christina sends these things out to board members and to certain other people, but they don't send them out to committee members who are not board members. So I never got notice of the.
Pat,
Excuse me. don't interrupt
again,
when I'm in
it's
the middle
on
of
the,
a sentence.
again,
Pat, stop it.
Craig, I didn't get it. I didn't get the agenda packet.
I'll
Right,
call
resolve some of it.
Christina and have her
It
send
still
it to you.
doesn't matter. It still doesn't solve the
Diana?
problem.
would you like to speak?
Maybe she will be. She's going back to her office.
Here I am. Yeah, so the question really is what level of environmental review? It's probably something like a mitigated negative deck, or maybe even lower than that in terms of what they're doing. The applicant, I guess, is the port, but it's a HACLA project of the Housing Authority, and they're the ones that got the funding and are going through the review. But there are port staff that have been assigned to do it. So, and we have the names of the port staff that have been assigned to work on the environmental review because the HACLA sent them to us.
Good.
Okay, well, you want to forward those to me,
If I can
if you
find,
got them?
if I can find them, I will.
Okay, because I looked at the project when you presented in the meeting, and that's why I brought it up, and Pat had brought up that he wanted to discuss it. And this was a specific thing that we were going from one committee to the other. And it'll probably go back and forth between this committee and your committee.
You know, our committees won't be doing anything more with it because it's the plans are probably pretty well baked by now. But I will try to find the see if I can find the names of the people at the port that were working on the environmental review.
Okay. Okay, so I will go through that. I'll talk to the port and find more stuff, and we can go from there. Agenda items for next meeting. Okay, Diana, your hand's still raised. Did you want to?
No.
Okay,
All right. Sorry.
Gwen,
For the spreadsheet, I think that hopefully another consideration for the Harbor Community Benefits Foundation, their cycles of when they have funding should also be monitored.
okay. I'll look into that. Pat,
Oh, you're not, you're
you
unmuted.
gotta, you know, on the bottom of the thing, Cynthia, I know you, pardon me a second, Pat. It
Yeah.
says raise hand. So when you raise your hand on the screen, I'm looking for the yellow hand to be raised from the, do you know what I'm talking about?
I was just telling him to unmute himself.
Yeah, I
Okay.
apologize, Cynthia and Craig. I was muted, didn't realize it. Thank you. Well, I have three matters that I'd like to see discussed. One is once a tracking method for, particularly for secret projects is established, that we establish a method for kind of assigning the work. I mean, saying, okay, who's going to do this? How are we going to,
Right.
how are we going to decide it? And I wrote up a couple of sentences. I think Christian requested I write up a request for it, and I did, and submitted to him. So you can look at that one for the wording for the agenda item. Second one is to develop a kind of a beginning stock list of mitigation measures that we should be asking for to take a look at the impacts of port projects. That would be a second one. The third one is discussion of the PAIP program. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. Talked to Tom Norman about it, and he's the absolutely perfect person to investigate that. And we talked to a couple of, actually talked to some other folks too to do it, but I'd certainly like to see that on the agenda. Excuse me, I apologize. So those three items.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nope, that'll be enough. We'll be busy next month.
If I might say something else, Craig, I think this is maybe the first committee in the 20-year history of our neighborhood council where we've tried to get stuff done in an hour. It just sometimes particularly at this stage of our formation, I'm not sure it can be done.
It's an hour and a half, Pat, right now.
Mhm.
And, you know, we have to, we have to walk before we can run. And in fact, and there's a lot of things we need to set up. So we're gonna have to work at this stuff and consider everything. And I hear what you're saying, but you know, there's a lot to set up. That was this whole project with getting the port, getting the stuff, getting everything set up in a spreadsheet is gonna take a lot of time and work too. And then, you know, moving forward, all this stuff is not gonna happen in a day. And we'll all have to work together and see what we can do.
I think so.
Okay, we're moving on to, do we have to have another? Okay, so let's see. So we can, if anybody has anything else to say, Jason, can you give me some way to contact you so I can go over some of this stuff? And I had wanted to have a conversation with you, just introduce myself.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'd reached out, and I know I understand the times you're working with Singapore. I do the same thing when I work with Europe, similar things when I work with Europe. So if nobody has anything else to add, Gwen, your hand's raised?
Yeah, but it can wait. I was hoping that I could discuss at some point this last sequel letter, the homework involved, and some of the stakeholders that I reached out to in order to formulate some of the statements. It was a full week of a lot of discussion and reaching out to government agencies for their feedback, and going into that, as well as what occurred back in 2016 in researching our comments for the Clean Air Action Plan. That was a tremendous amount of research and collaboration between me and Carlos.
Okay, Gwen,
I'm just saying, I'm hoping
can we
that can
move
have a
on?
discussion.
I mean, you have your own committee you can discuss this in. You
Well-
know, we've been in this meeting for an hour and a half. We got homework to set up, and let's move forward.
Of course, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Good
I
evening.
move it's adjourned.
Okay,
Second,
I move that
third,
it's
fourth.
adjourned. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Y'all have a good evening. I look forward to talk to you, Jason and Thomas. And we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank
David, I
you.
like your set of wings. You see your wings behind you. You're an angel.
Yeah, I was noticing that.